I'm Billy, and today I'm going to transform into my original character, Miss Bill. So watch now as I go from this to this. Yeah! Over the last decade, I've been a professional performer. I've been on 2 national tours with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus as a clown, and I've also represented the characters for the Walt Disney Company. I'm really excited to be transforming into Miss Bill for all of you today. The first thing that I'm gonna start with is this Morphe concealer, and I use this on my eyes so that way when I'm putting the color over it, I'm getting a really nice, rich, vibrant shade of the color that I'm applying, because it doesn't show up as nicely just on my bare skin. Using not a whole lot, I'm gonna start right over here, right underneath the bridge of my brow, and I'm gonna just place a little bit there. I've got some really interesting makeup techniques that you guys will see. My background does come from doing clown makeup, and when I learned how to do my clown makeup, it was supposed to be seen at the bottom of an arena, and so that people all the way up at the top of the nosebleed seats could still see the expressions on my face. So when I was learning how to do makeup, it was very, very, very big, and that has translated beautifully over into my drag makeup. Right now, as you see, I'm just putting a little bit of this white concealer right underneath the bridge of my brow. That's gonna also act as a little bit of a highlight for my brow later on. But I'm just using my finger now, and I'm putting that all over my lid. I'm gonna be covering my whole lid with this white concealer. And as I'm putting this on, I'm kind of just patting it in. I don't really like dragging my finger because that causes a lot of lines. So I just do little small pats. And I'm going right here into the corner of my eye, and I'm going directly up to where the end of my eyebrow is. With my white, I also go down the side just a little bit, and this is something that I've taken directly from my clown makeup, and it really just helps open up that eye even more. I'm gonna be putting a little bit of foundation right here at this bottom part, so it might look a little bit weird right now, but it's gonna really help me be able to carry the color all the way around this outside of my eye. Even though I dragged it down to the side, I'm still gonna drag it underneath my bottom lid just a little bit too. So it's gonna be coming almost to the corner of one of the quarters of my eye. So now that I've got my white concealer all done, that's all blended in really nicely there, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm gonna be putting a lot of stuff over it. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on my eyebrows. This is gonna be just a really loose application because I'm gonna be adding makeup over on top of it, but I just wanna have my eyebrows placed so that way when I'm doing the rest of my makeup, I'm just able to maneuver around them, because the eyebrows can be one of the most difficult elements of your makeup, and I am absolutely a perfectionist. I like to have nice clean lines, and I like them to be as symmetrical as possible. I know they say that the eyebrows are not sisters, they are cousins or whatever that is, but I still like mine to be perfect because I notice in a photo if they're off. And I am my biggest critique, so if I'm unhappy with it, there's some other bitch that's out there that's noticing it too. So I'm just gonna eliminate that entirely and really do a nice job on my eyebrows. I also use a lot of grease paint. This is something that I'm also taking from my clown expertise as well. This is a Mayron color cup here. This is just the color brown, and this is what I use to fill in my eyebrows. This grease paint needs to be set with a powder or else it will stay wet. So as I'm putting on my eyebrows, I have a lot of expression that's here in my face and in my eyebrows. A lot of drag queens completely cover their eyebrows with a glue stick, and I have tried that many times. I've watched tons of different tutorials, and I've been able to do it. And I've been able to have it look seamless and have it look smooth. But because my forehead is so expressive, and as I move my face, I make so many lines, I'm constantly getting cracks through that those glue sticks. So it was really no matter what I was doing, how good I was doing it. So as I'm putting on my eyebrows, I know that I have this mark that's right here, and I also have this mark that's right there. So I really want those to be kind of the ends of my eyebrows. So as I am animating and moving my face around, those are gonna be areas on my face that are going to be the most active. There we go. So now you can see just by putting those little marks on there how much my eyebrows are going to move when I have them all on. Right from that mark that I've already created there, and I'm going to trace just right on the top of my eyebrow here. And I'm going to go all the way to the end. And then as I'm getting to the end, I'm going to rotate my brush just a little bit so that way I can flick it and have somewhat of a thin end on the bottom of the brow. I've also learned before that when you're putting your eyebrow on, you want the end of your eyebrow to go right to the corner of your eyeball, and you want the end of your brow to go perfectly from a diagonal here up to the end of your eyebrow. But to each their own. Do what you want if you want to have nice long lizard tail eyebrows. My shape is done there. Now I'm going to start just filling in my natural brow with this same grease paint. And I'm going to be blending at the top of the brow, making sure that I'm connecting where my natural brow is and that line is that I just created. And next I'll be moving over to the other side. And now I'm going to just put one quick little layer of powder over this so that way I can start applying some eyeshadow. First, the Ghetto Circus way is straight up just Johnson's baby powder inside a sock. You just dump it into the sock, you tie it in a knot, and then you've got a huge, endless supply of powder that you can use. And now I'm just gonna press this into the grease. Now that I've got my powder on, looking super crazy, I'm gonna just take my fingers, which has powder on them from holding the sock, and I'm just gonna press it in and pat it down. You don't wanna ever drag, because if there are little bits of makeup that are still wet, it's gonna drag that wet paint. So I always just pat and go straight up and down. And you can usually feel immediately if there's still wet makeup on there, and you can powder a little bit more. As I'm wiping it away, I'm gonna be going with the lines of my makeup. So I don't wanna be brushing against my eyebrow, because again, if I had wet makeup in it, I could be pulling wet makeup out. So I always just wanna be going with the lines of my makeup here. I'm next gonna move on to adding a little bit of color onto my eyelid. I have a beautiful palette from Morphe. It is probably the most popular palette out on the market right now. This is a James Charles palette. I bought it far before he wronged his friend Tati, but it is a really good palette. I'm gonna be starting with this beautiful kind of fuchsia, flamingo-ish pink. And I'm gonna start gently right underneath my eyebrow and starting to just sort of feather that towards the other side.
Billy, I have a question. Do you have a favorite makeup brush?
This right here. Because I can get really in there and I can make pretty nice fine lines even just with my fingertip, and I have an amazing sense of control with my fingers. I'm pretty much done with this pink for right now, up on top, but I do want to continue it a little bit underneath my eye. So now over here where I had dragged the white concealer underneath, I'm gonna put just a little bit of a dab of pink right there on both sides too. And then I'll help blend that in once I add in the other color. For the next color, I'm going to be using this purple here. Differently from the pink, I'm gonna be going right in the corner of my eye this time. I'm gonna be going right in the crease. So on my upper lid, I'm gonna be hitting my eye right here in the corner crease. Going up, I wanna still leave a little bit of that white that's underneath my eyebrow, because that highlight there is really going to help with that movement that my eyebrow has, and it also helps bring out that brow bone and give me more of that feminine look. I've got color here on my eyelids now, and I'm going to add a little bit of white into my eyelid now. I'm going to refer back to the concealer that I had a few moments ago that I had started with. What I'm going to be doing a little bit differently this time is that I'm going to be using a brush because I want to have a nice clean line that's going to help open up my eye just a little bit more. Just take it from the applicator and I'm just going to kind of dab it right over here in the corner of my eye. Now I'm going to use the brush and I'm going to sort of just smooth it out and draw that line in there. I'm going to just start pulling from the white that I had just placed there in the corner, and I'm going to start dragging it up towards the crease of my eye. Then I'm going to start to take the white that I have here in the corner, and I'm also going to drag it underneath my eye just a little bit as well. Because with this white concealer here, I'm going to continue all the way around to the edge of my eye. So this is going to go right onto my waterline. I like to place the makeup right on there because that white really opens up the eye so much. I'm going to go back now to my palette, and there's a white on here. I'll use the white from my palette here, and that will help give it a nice vibrant white onto the waterline. And I'll just take this powder and I'll just dab it right onto the waterline, and that will usually help set it enough. I'm also gonna pull it up here onto my upper lid, and I'm gonna set that with this white powder too. It is my least favorite time, eyeliner time. I don't like doing the eyeliner because I always will mess it up. So here, this is what I'm going to be using. This is the NYX liquid eyeliner. It's got a really nice thin point on it. From here, I'll just mark the corner of my eye, right where the top lid meets the lower lid. And from here, I'll draw another dot right along the edge of my color. And I'm doing it ever so slightly. It's mostly just for me to see. So I'm just putting up that other little dot. And I want this outward dot to be as thin as possible, as small as possible, because essentially that's going to be the very tip of my winged liner there. So the reason I do dots is because it is less of a commitment and you're able to connect the dots afterwards. When you're drawing straight lines, that's when stuff starts to go jagged, or the pen starts to bleed and makes one area fatter than the other side. So I usually try to do my detailed, sensitive areas with little dots and just connecting the lines. From here, I'm gonna be doing a gentle swooping motion, going only one direction. You don't ever wanna go forward and backwards. When you're putting on the eyeliner, you only ever wanna be flicking it out in the direction that you are intending to draw the line. All right, so I've got that eye line drawn on. It's just light right now. Once I had the dots drawn, I connected the dots and then I filled that in there a little bit more just to make it a little bit thicker. I'm gonna start blocking out the color of my beard. I have a really thick beard, so what I do here is I add a color like orange or red. I use a darker foundation color that has a little bit of orange in it to cover the blueness of my beard. If you don't do this step and you put your foundation on, you will be able to see color from your beard coming out through your foundation. So since I do have a really dark beard, this is a step that I really can't skip. But I'm just patting this on, covering up the color, and then I'm gonna start my foundation, and I'm gonna put my foundation directly over this color, and then you won't be able to see the blueness anymore. And then once I'm done with this step, I'm gonna powder this so that way it sets. When I'm putting the powder on, I put it here onto my powder puff, and then I blend it in just a little bit. And when I put it on, I pat, 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 straight upward and downward motions, never dragging the makeup. What I like about these powder puffs is that I can fold it and I can like make it the shape that I need to get into specific areas, and just brush off a little bit of that extra powder. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but you can already see that like the color of my beard is so much more hidden. Shout out to what I use when I'm in clown, because that stuff really does set on my face just a little bit better. And for that, I use this Mayron cream stick blend. What's great about this is that you can literally just kind of like paint it onto your face and then blend it in. Throw this foundation all over my face. I'm pretty much gonna cover all of my face here with this foundation. This is called Warm Honey, and it brings out a really nice warmness to my face. I always like having, you know, that California glow with my makeup. I don't ever like looking too pale or too washed out. And this Warm Honey really helps me achieve that effect. And then I want to make sure I'm bringing it down onto my neck too. This one I'm going to drag down just a little bit farther than that color block that I did, because I want it to blend a little bit more seamlessly. I'm also going to start to bring it back a little bit more back behind my ear. I'm going to bring a little bit onto my ear as well. Okay, so now that this one's wet, I'm going to add in some contour color to this, and I'm going to blend it in with the base before I powder it. The contour color that I'm using today is just this little cheap e.l.f. that you can get from Target. I'm going to be a little bit sloppy with this as I'm putting it on. But I'm gonna just draw this crown up here on the top of my head. This is gonna be eventually blended into my forehead, but it's gonna help give the illusion that I have more of a small, petite forehead. I'm also going to contour my cheeks here, but this does dry kind of quickly, so I wanna move somewhat fast and not let this contour color dry too much. From here, I'm gonna just pat this contour color in. And I don't wanna be able to see it too much. I want it to look natural. I want it to just be subtle. I'm gonna be starting to contour my cheeks. When I'm contouring my cheek, I'm gonna be trying to hit directly below my cheekbone to give it a little bit of the shadow there, so I can highlight above and below that contour and really make the cheekbones pop. So you can really see where my cheekbones are. It makes like that triangle shape there, and that's what I'm gonna be trying to emulate with my contouring. When I make this shape, I'm gonna just draw that contour right onto that line that you can see and blend it there, and then adding the highlighter onto my upper cheek and just below the contour. Sometimes I don't even use a liquid contour cream like I am doing right now. I'll just use a dry powder, and I think that that works fine too. They say, however, that if you're performing on stage or in stage lighting, that it will be more pronounced if you are using the cream as a base and then using the foundation on top of it. Now I have a somewhat of a masculine jaw here, so I'm kind of gonna just put a little bit of the contour right here on the edge of my jaw, and I'm gonna cut this edge off. Anything that you're using that is gonna be dark, like this contouring, is gonna help it drop back or help it disappear in photos or on stage. And anything that is white or a lighter foundation is going to help it move forward. They say that white or a highlight is light in a can. I'm going to just put this all over my Adam's apple. I really just pile that on because I do have a pretty big Adam's apple. So by putting this darkness over it, it helps it just eliminate the shadows just a little bit more. I'm going to put a little bit right here underneath my lip, and then I'm also going to put some here on my nose. So I'm just going to draw down each side of my nose and blend them in. Next, I'm going to use a little bit more concealer that I have here. This might look like white, but is actually a really fair flesh color. The spots that I'm going to use this on are right here on my forehead, and then I'm going to put it here on my cheek, down the tip of my nose. And I'm just gonna blend this in here and blend it into my forehead in nice round motions.
We're noticing over here on mute just how you've manipulated light and shadow in just a few minutes, in just a few swipes, and just as each of these successive layers are going on, it's just, we're watching it transform. It's just really cool to be able to share this in real time.
After I'm done with this step, it really is just kind of just finishing touches. I'm done with my foundation right now. I'm done with the contour colors that I added and the highlighting colors as well. So next I'm gonna powder. Got my trusty sock First, I'm gonna kind of just like peruse around my face and make sure that I didn't get any lines that started to form across my forehead. I need to blend all of that in before I set this powder too. I do see that there are a couple of lines over here on the outside, so I'm gonna just blend that in real quick. Here I am, just using my powder sock, slightly patting upward and downward motions, hitting all of these wet spots. Everything feels good. Once I've put it on, I'm gonna also then go back with my hand and I'm gonna pat it with my fingers.
So this is the part that scares me, because I'm paranoid that something will change and be weird when the powder goes on, or that I'll screw something up.
There is always the risk. There is always the risk. Every time you're powdering, the chance of you messing up what you had done. Usually, most of the time, it's you're moving the product by accident. When I've noticed that my makeup is really wet, I'll put my head back and I'll kind of just like use my powder and powder my face that way. So that way I'm not moving it and transferring the makeup, but I've just completely filled my face with powder. Everything is set, and then I can go in with my fingers and pat everywhere. I'm gonna take my powder brush now and I'm gonna go with the lines of my face again and brush it all away. I'll take a wet baby wipe and then I'll dab my face with the wet baby wipe and kind of remove the residual powder that's there. I'll make sure that I wipe down the scalp of my head really good, because if I'm gonna be having to use any glue or any kind of adhesive, it will not set to the powder. So I gotta make sure that I'm removing all of that. So just by tapping it with the baby wipe here, it's just making the color just a little bit more vibrant from the foundation, and it's not letting it be washed out. Next, I am going to redo my eyebrows and finish those up a little bit. I'm gonna throw on my lashes, throw on some blush, throw on my lips, and then my face will be done. I'm gonna retrace over those lines that I had put there earlier. This won't be the last step for my eyebrows though. Just like I had set the white with the white powder, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna set my eyebrows with one of the browns from my palette. But before I do that, I'm gonna add a little bit of those wispies above my eyebrow to give it a little bit more of a natural look. And then really in no order, I'm gonna just add a couple of extra little spots on my brow to make it look like those are hair. I'll only do a couple of these browns because I'm also gonna go over this with my liquid eyeliner, and I'm gonna put a couple of black lines in there too. That's pretty much all I'll do for the brown in my eyebrows. Next, I'm gonna use this eyeshadow brush, and this I'm gonna use to darken my eyebrows. I'm gonna go back to my palette and I'm gonna hit up one of these browns. This brown over here is pretty much my color. And then I'm just gonna use this color and I'm gonna trace it over my eyebrow. It'll give it a little bit more depth to have that little bit of extra color in there. It's gonna also help set the wet grease paint. And from here, I want to make sure that I'm being as delicate as possible, so that way I'm not having strong black lines, because I am going to be using the felt tip again for when I'm doing this. The blush that I'm going to be using is a Ben Nye powder blush. This is DR13. It's called Natural Blush. I'm going to hit that up. I'm going to do a big smile and get it right here on the balls of my cheeks. I'm going to drag it back up towards my ear. I'm also going to do my nose, do my chin. I'm also gonna do underneath my nose. Just this nice little natural blush color that gives me more of that warmness. Because now I will also be using another Ben Nye powder blush. This one is called Cocoa Rose. And this one has a little bit more of the purple blue pigment in it, and it really complements my skin wall. So one of the spots that I'll do is sort of like underneath my chin, just a little bit right on the edge of my chin. This is a nod to my clown. I'll put a little bit of this red rouge right underneath my nose there, and it helps work as a contour and cinch my nose upward just a little bit there. And then I'll make another smile, add just a little bit of this color onto the apples of my cheeks and drag it back just a little bit. And then I'll also put it up here on my temples, and that will also help give the illusion that I have a smaller forehead. And I'll carry that up into these valleys that I've got up here. I have this really great highlighting contouring palette. This is You Got It, also from Morphe. One in here has a lot of great highs and lows, but I really like this color called Lit and Stardust. They add a really great highlighting color to the makeup, and you'll see so much the lift that it gives your face. So I'm gonna use the Stardust color first, and I'm just gonna kind of trace that down the edge of my nose. I'm gonna put this on my chin right above where I had put that red color, and then I'm gonna put it up here above where I had put the contour. I think highlighting is one of the most transformative steps that you can take with your makeup, and it's one that I never miss. I'm even gonna do a little bit more on top of this with this luster dust powder that I have. That is basically just like a glitter, but I love glitter. These are my absolute favorite liquid lipsticks that I've got. They're Jeffree Star, and these are the most on brand with Miss Bill, if you can't tell from my backdrop. Before I put it on, I'm gonna take my baby wipe and I'm gonna clean up my lips a little bit to remove some of that foundation makeup that I don't need there. I also don't paint my lip from corner to corner. I kind of cut my lips in just a little bit more and leave the corners of my lips blank. So I want to leave a little bit of the foundation covering the areas that I'm gonna leave open, and being sure that I don't remove that makeup there. For the lip here, I'm really just gonna do like the duck lip part of my lip. Then I'm going to transfer that over just by rubbing them together. The great thing about these Jeffree Star applicators is that it has a little bit of the ridge right on the edge there, and it like cups onto my lip, and it makes it so easy to draw on that I've used other liquid lipsticks and I've wanted to like come take this and wash it and use it on the other lipstick because the applicator is so good. I just kind of finished the shape that I want to have with my top lip. I always do my bottom lip a little bit smaller first, so that way I can exaggerate that a little bit bigger than the top lip, so I can see that the lipstick from the top is transferring down a little bit onto the bottom lip. So now I'm gonna just shape that out a little bit more to match it up. Okay, my lip shape is done. The reason I don't go right into the corners of my mouth is very similar to the reason that I make the choices about my eyebrows too. I want the exaggeration to happen whenever I'm having that movement. So when you go into the corners of your mouth, it in a way makes your mouth more limited to the range of motion that it can have. When you don't go into the edge of your mouth, it gives more space for me to kind of like shift that bottom lip over from what my top lip is doing, and it makes it just a little bit more comedic and gives it more motion. So that's why I do the lips the way that I do. The last step to make them pop just a little bit more is I revert back to that white concealer one more time, put a little bit on the tip of my finger, and I'll put that onto my lip, blend it together, and it kind of just gives it a little bit more of a highlight there. Okay. Next, I'm going to set my lip real quick with this powder. I'm gonna just throw a little bit here onto my powder brush and then pat my lips. Brush that off. When I'm putting on my eyelash glue, I put just a little dab right here on my hand. I've noticed that when you put eyelashes on, sometimes it can make your eyes look droopy if they're not placed the right way. So a trick that I know to prevent that is I just put on a regular pair of eyelashes first. To put that glue on, I just hold on to the lash and then I kind of just drag it through that drop of glue that I had put onto my hand. And I've seen a lot of people use tweezers to put their eyelashes on, but I have to use my hand. And I'll put that onto my lash, starting towards the corner of my eye, but not all the way on the inside corner of my eye. I'll drop that lash on there.
Do you ever trim your lashes?
Yes, thanks for reminding me. You'll find that when you put the eyelashes on that sometimes they do need to be trimmed, and I'll usually trim off like a bunch or two from the little groups of follicles that they have on here. And I find that it just fits my eye a little bit better. The reason I put on a regular eyelash first is that when I put on my bigger, larger, exaggerated lash, it kind of just sits more on top of that lash and doesn't give me that droopy eye effect that where it happens if I use the large lash first. With the eyelash glue, you never want to just like get it wet and throw it on right away. You want to let it dry for about 30 seconds or so, because it'll make it just a little bit more tacky and it'll stick to itself a little bit more. Whereas when you put it on wet, it will slide around just a little bit. I think it's so much easier for me personally to just use my fingers and press them down. I can feel when it's nice and snug on there, as opposed to gently using the tweezers to stick them on. Something else that I do for my signature look is I put on a little bit of a lower lash as well. I do usually wear the lashes a couple of times before I get rid of them. But Ro, earlier, how you were talking about trimming the eyelashes, this is one of my trimmings, and I'm repurposing it for the lower. And I've also glued a rhinestone up onto the top of it. So I'm gonna just hold on to the lash. I'm gonna dab that rhinestone and the lash trimming onto the glue. And then right underneath my eye, right in the center where the white meets the black, is where I'm going to throw on my lower lash. I like to use rhinestones on my face and in my makeup. It's definitely a nod to my circus past, being covered in rhinestones in my costume. So I like having that little bit of an extra sparkle.
I imagine having that sparkle in the center of your eye also does something under lights that's really captivating for a drag look.
It definitely picks up the light. I think when you have the lashes above your eye, it always runs you the risk of it closing your eye and making your eye look a little bit smaller. So this rhinestone that I'm putting underneath my lid is also helping to open my eye and give the illusion more that the blue from my eye is continued down to where the rhinestone is. Another reason why I do the lower lash is very often in clown makeup, you might have seen clowns will like draw a black line there, or they'll have this element underneath their eye, and it is to make the eye look bigger, but instead of doing it with makeup, I'm doing it with the eyelash here. Final touches that I usually use is I use this Ben Nye Luxe powder. It is a luster dust, and it's just a very, very, very fine glitter, but it works amazingly as a highlighter. And I'll usually just grab a Q-tip and ever so slightly, I'll just dab it into the luster dust, so it's got a little bit on there, and I'll go into the inside corner of my eye and I'll dab it right there. I'll drag it down the center of my nose, on the end of my nose, make me look like I have a little bit of a button nose. I'm gonna bring it up here to my upper cheek, here into my chin. That is pretty much it for my face, but I was gonna throw a wig on for you guys so you could see how I do that real quick. Let's do it, shall we? One thing that I always recommend that you're starting off with is having a wig cap. When you're first getting these wig caps, they can be really tight. So I recommend that you put them in between your hands and you can kind of like stretch them out. I put both of my hands into the wig cap so that way I can have it nice, big, and open, and I slip it over my head this way. Pull it down nice and far in the back, as far as it can go. And then I'm gonna pull the wig cap back so it goes all the way to my hairline. Because it's only on about, half of the size of my head, when you're putting these big wigs on, a lot of times people will tape their wig cap down or they'll glue right here. Because I'm not gonna be going out and doing any heavy performing right now, I'm gonna skip that step. So this is a lace front wig. I use lace front wigs because it gives much more of a gradual transition from where the wig is to where your natural skin is. And when you're putting the wig on, if you're doing it by yourself, you want to turn it forward so the front of the wig is facing in front, and you'll take one index finger and you'll put them pretty much on one side of each side of the wig. Inside the wigs, however, they do have ear tabs. So I'm pretty much putting my fingertips right here, right at the top of where the ear tabs are. So that way I can hold it behind me and I can put it right down now on where that hairline is. Because I've got it pressed up against my hairline, I can slip them around now down to the back, and I can pull the back of the wig down. My ears for this wig in particular don't really fit that well, so I tuck my ears also into the wig, so my ears are tucked up in there as well To make it look nice and neat, I want to make sure I don't have any folds or bunches that are in my lace. And then to secure it, once I've got the wig on and in place, I'm going to just use some bobby pins. I'm going to open up the bobby pin like this with my finger. And then I'm just going to reach into the back, hook it into the hair first, and then up underneath. And then I'll do that again over on the opposite side. Push it up there nice and good. To make it be nice and secure, I might just try to separate the hair here as much as I can and shove this bobby pin in and get it tucked in up underneath that wig cap. So the look will not be complete without my top. So as a nod to my wonderful night at Yuri's night this year, I'll be throwing on my astronaut jacket. From that to this. Thank you, thank you.
Billy, I am so impressed with the whole thing, the whole transformation, every part of it. But looking at you now and seeing how well thought out all of your color choices were, I love it so much and I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you. I mean, I gotta say, you were seeing a little bit of a hybrid the whole time, like a little bit of Miss Bill, a little bit of Billy, but it wasn't until like now where I have like the wig on and the whole thing that I feel like I'm a fully realized version of Miss Bill, and I feel like I've been like flicked on and I'm ready to go be in character.
Now that you're fully in Miss Bill, do you feel different?
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly what I was just referring to, is that like you were seeing little tastes of it, but now I feel like I'm Miss Bill. Because I'm complete, I've got the wig, I've got the makeup, I didn't skip any steps, and I feel good. I feel like I have a confidence that I didn't have a couple of hours ago, and that is what is so amazing and transformative about drag. It's what I love about it so much. All right, well, I gotta say thank you all very much for spending all of that time with me. Bye. Bye. I said bye. My name is Miss Bill.